Hello and welcome to Drawing 1. In this course, which is online, we are going to explore several different things, and it's for anyone that is interested in art and who would like to further explore art, as well as those students who have taken art class in high school and beyond. So I just want to give you an overview of what we're going to explore in this class. So drawing 1, we're going to think about visual phenomena, what we are actually observing in the natural world. And we're also going to look at the language and the craft of art making and what that entails. So let's start with visual phenomena. Visual phenomena can be divided into touch and also the image produced on the retina of our eye. And what I want to refer to in regard to touch is when we look at an object in the natural world, just by looking at it, we know how it feels. We know that it's hard or soft or rough or smooth, and that relates to our sense of physical touch. When we look at children's drawings, in the very beginning, they translate their experience of the world through touch. So we'll see their drawing of maybe of themselves or their friend, very much about outline and how their head feels. Maybe their hair is curly sticking up or their ears are sticking out. This has very little to do with what they actually see. This has to do with how they touch the world around them to give themselves experience of things in the natural world. And but we also have an impression of what we see in our brain, okay? So that's the image produced by our eye. So we look at the world. Here's our eyeball, okay? We see, let's say we see a tree. This is a very simple tree. That impression of that tree goes into our eye and produces a upside down version of that tree on our brain, okay? And part of art making is looking at that phenomena, that impression that is produced on the retina of our eye, and translating that into a two-dimensional art making process, okay? So those are the two things that we're really going to explore. Linear design falls under touch because we're only dealing with outline. And then once we get into value, we get into that impression that's on our retina of our eye, okay? So again, visual phenomena, we're going to translate what we see, three-dimensional reality to a two-dimensional visual impression, and we're going to use our language, which is the craft of art making, and we're also going to explore techniques and materials. Now, we're going to try some materials that you're not familiar with and some that you are familiar with, okay? If we were working in the classroom, we would also experiment with some more unusual materials as well. Okay? So, so one thing I want you to keep in mind, if you're a beginner, this is a new thing. This is like learning a new language. If you were learning French or German, think of the first day of your first class, okay? You need to become familiar with some of the craft, some of the language, in order that you can be able to speak freely with that craft and translate the phenomena that you see in the world to your piece of artwork. The first class, what I like to do is give my students strategies on ways to begin, on ways to unlock what they're looking at. All right. So these are the 4 strategies. It's listed on Brightspace as well under the assignment section, but I'm just going to go over them here as well. So the 4 strategies. When we look at an object, we're going to look at the axis of the object, which is the center line, or the direction that that object is moving in. Okay. Secondly, we're going to build the shape of that object through short, straight lines. Think of it, if I have an onion, think of it as like a piece of wood. And I'm going to chip away at the form to understand its actual shape, okay, by using short, straight lines. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about cross-contour lines. Cross-contour lines tell us what direction an object is facing. Think of it as the equator on a globe, okay? As that globe moves and tilts, that equator changes direction and gives us the impression of how that globe is moving in space, okay? And that's called the cross-contour line, the equator, all right? And then lastly, I want to talk about the proportion of an object and the picture plane, okay? If an object is what I call behind the picture plane, so you're looking out a window through a clear piece of glass, and there's an object outside, okay? As that object approaches that piece of glass, it becomes closer and closer to its actual size, its actual realistic size, okay? So if I take my onion, it's out in space, and I'm slowly bringing it toward my picture plane. Once it hits the picture plane, it is called life size, all right? If I take that onion and I pass it on to this side of the picture plane, it becomes larger than life and can take on monstrous proportions, okay? So in this class, we want to make sure that our objects are behind this picture plane, that they are no larger than life size, which is touching the picture plane, but more than likely, it's going to be behind the picture plane as we look through it, okay? And that's how proportion relates to a picture plane, okay? And this is going to become really important as we get on to more advanced drawing, and especially in our unit on perspective. Next, I want to talk about the materials that we're going to use at the beginning of this class. We're going to use charcoal, which comes in your kit. It's in this very narrow box, Grumbacher charcoal, and it's a medium vine, and it comes in a little bag. You're going to get 12 sticks in here, okay? The next thing that you're going to need is a sandpaper pad. Now, this did not come with your kit. I usually make this for every single student in my class, and it's very, very simple for you to make yourself. You're going to take a piece of cardboard. Here's another version of my Amazon box. And you're going to take a piece of sandpaper. Now, this sandpaper is 220 grit, okay? You want something that's not too gritty because you'll just wear away your charcoal. So this is pretty fine grit, okay? 220 is the best. If you have 150, you can use that too, okay? And you're going to take your cardboard, you're going to take your sandpaper, and then you're just going to run the tape along the outside and basically tape it onto your piece of cardboard. And what we're going to use this for is to sharpen our charcoal. If you look at the charcoal sticks, when they come in the kit, there is no point on them. So we're going to form a point on these sticks, and this is the way we're going to do it, okay? I'm just going to use the one that I have right now. My sandpaper is just on a piece of wood, an old cross piece, okay? So you're going to take your charcoal stick, your sandpaper, you're going to put your stick at an angle, okay? And you're slowly going to go back and forth, and you're going to spin your charcoal simultaneously as you go back and forth, okay? And what you're going to do is, before we begin drawing, you're going to sharpen up about 3 sticks, okay? And you can see, against the white here, how long and sharp my point is, okay? All right, so that's the first thing that we're going to use today. And then what goes with the charcoal is the kneaded eraser. It's this gray eraser that's in your kit. When you look at it fresh from your kit, it's going to be a rectangle, a gray rectangle that's wrapped in plastic, okay? And you're going to take it out and you're going to knead it, just like you knead a loaf of bread or dough. And this is going to be the other tool that you're going to use, okay? And then lastly, we don't always need an eraser, like especially when we're beginning a charcoal drawing, we just use a rag, you know. In the classroom I have some, flannel cotton rags, and the one I use in my own studio is just like a washcloth, okay? So any kind of small rag that you have, can be an old t-shirt, cotton is the best, should be something soft, not stiff, because you don't want to rough up your paper, and about this big, okay? And so this is just something you have in your household. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, if you cannot get the sandpaper, because you can't go out to the store at this point, you can order what's called a sandpaper pad online. It's about this size, it's very small, and it's just sheets of sandpaper stapled onto a skinny piece of wood, okay? And in our next lesson we're going to talk about making comparisons, and that I'll show you the kind of stick you can use for that.